thumbs up and subscribe if you're new. This is the way.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Aco-Light discussion. Just having a bit of a chat. It's a couple of days late, I know. I was meant to do it on Wednesday night after the episode aired, but yeah, life's just been a little bit of a chaotic one this last couple of weeks. So I decided to I'm just going to need to just switch off for a couple extra nights and come back ready and strong Saturday night. We're talking episode 7, Choice of the Acolyte. I enjoyed it for the most part. It was a good episode. Probably, look, it was at this point in time is probably hard to say whether it's my least favorite. I'm not sure. I've only had the one viewing. And I've kind of one solid viewing. I didn't get to do my sort of rewatch and take notes and stuff like I have in the past. So maybe maybe I need that extra viewing just to give it a little bit of extra juice. We did have it playing at work throughout the week. So it was kind of paid a little bit of attention here and there while we were working. But yeah, it wasn't super duper, captivating at that time for that rewatch. But yeah, I'll definitely give this episode another rewatch. So yeah, the choice. And I thought the best way to talk about this episode is maybe go over some characters and talk about their motivations and how this episode sort of changes things a little bit. So yeah, we're going back to the same period that episode 3 took place, so 16 years prior, and this is going from an alternate point of view. And just before I start, you all know I'm pretty positive and optimistic about Star Wars. There's a couple of little gripes with this episode that I have. First one, I'm just going to get them out of the way. Just straight away, I'm just going to get them out of the way. Firstly, I just want to make sure my microphone is tuning. It looks like it's all good. So yeah, thanks for coming and hanging out. If you're watching live, if you're watching later, appreciate it. Yeah, so just a couple of gripes to get out of the way to start. Basically, I felt, after watching this episode, I felt a lot of it had already been seen in the 3rd episode. I know that it's the same set of circumstances and it's happening from an alternate point of view, but I don't think the shots were alternative enough. I feel like a lot of the same shots were actually shown in this episode. Maybe that's just how I feel. Maybe that's just, because I did watch that 3rd episode probably 3 times over the last few weeks since that one aired. So maybe it just felt that way. Maybe I felt like it was a little bit too much of a rehash. It was a feel, me and the guys that I watched it with, we all kind of decided that, they probably could have skimmed through a little bit more, a little bit quicker. Don't get me wrong, it was cool to see. I love the sort of alternate point of view, from Soul's perspective, going and finding the girls and seeing them at the tree from that alternate angle. We sort of get his point of view. And of course, later when he sneaks into the coven, the base, whatever you want to call it, and seeing them doing their training from a different perspective, that was kind of cool. And the other thing was credits. So I don't know who the artist is. I don't know. I didn't really listen to the song, to be honest, but it kind of just felt like they'd inserted a pop song into the credits. And I don't know, it sort of pulled me back to earth when I saw it, when it started playing. I kind of like, you know what, that feels a little bit out of place in Star Wars, I'll be honest. That was just my gut feeling. Again, nothing against the artist, nothing against the song itself. Not my jam, but it's just, I don't know, it just felt a little bit out of place. It sort of pulled me out of, it was we're coming up to the end of the season. We got one episode. I kind of felt like there needs to be a little bit more build up going into the finale next week. So yeah, it's sort of, I don't know. I feel maybe that fits better in in Marvel or something like that, where the characters are sort of rooted on Earth in an alternate reality of what we've got, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Whereas Star Wars is extraterrestrial. It's out there. It's own thing. So that's just my little 2 cents, my little two little gripes from this episode. I just don't feel like, a quote unquote pop song kind of fits for me, at least. Let me know if you thought otherwise. I'd be interested to see. It just didn't feel right. So yeah, like I said, I haven't taken notes on this episode, so I'm just going to sort of just spill whatever comes to mind. Hope that's all good. So yeah, it's sort of. So Indara. We're gonna start with Indara. I felt like she's probably the one that's remained more mysterious throughout the season. She showed up early. She was taken off the board very, very quickly. We saw her basically in episode 3 in the flashbacks, 16 years prior. So we saw her predominantly in that episode, not really understanding motivations. She was clearly the senior Jedi in this group of 4 Jedi. We, at the time of episode 3, we had really no idea why they were there. So I was very happy to hear the callback when they were doing their research about the Great Hyperspace Disaster from The Light of the Jedi, which is the first book of the High Republic, which was set 100 years before. And basically, a ship gets sabotaged while it's in hyperspace. It blows up. Fragments of this ship just exit hyperspace all over the galaxy, rendering some planets completely obliterated. And what the Jedi assumed had basically caused Brendok to become lifeless. So obviously, during their research here, they're trying to find life. And it seems as though Master Indara is the one that is there, understanding that there is a vergence, which is basically a pocket of force that's like, it stands out. If you were to reach into the force, it's like a pocket of energy that's just like an extra little bit of juice somewhere. I don't know. It's like when you're eating a dish and you get a peppercorn. It's like that's not a good. It's not a good comparison, but that's the kind of way I put it. Basically another pocket of force, and it's sort of all indicators lead to it's centered around these girls being manifestations of the force. They are force sensitive. The witches are also force sensitive. Not Jedi, obviously. So it was kind of cool, but I liked some of the little nods to the Jedi teachings, where she mentions to Torben to not center around your anxieties, which is straight from Qui-Gon Jinn. I think she said it. Was it Sol? I can't remember. Either way, that was a cool little line. But yeah, it turns. I'm trying to work out like Indara's sort of motivations. It's still quite unclear. I think she's almost a by the book Jedi, but she's willing to sort of duck and weave a little bit. She's trying to keep an emotional Padawan in control. And it's not really working for her. So yeah, I'll probably end up back at her again. Sol, we learn in this episode, going back to his younger times, that he was very much driven by emotion. We sort of, when we find him in the sort of current day, quote unquote, he's kind of made peace with the errors of his past. Maybe he's still living with a few demons. But I don't know. I think he's sort of taken on a more Qui-Gon Jinn-ish role, but we sort of, as we go back and we see in this episode, that he's very much driven by his emotions. He has this call that he needs to train Osha for whatever reason. It's her. And yeah, obviously I hope the last episode is going to clear a lot of this stuff up. But yeah, he's very much driven by emotion, which, to a degree, in the Jedi Order, its emotion is shunned. It, leads to all the factions of the dark side. Torben, another interesting addition to this episode. We're on that dude could fight with a lightsaber. Holy crap, that was awesome. Probably, he feels during this episode that they've been on this planet for 7 weeks. He's had enough of just looking for whatever. He's impatient. He's irrational. He's young. He's whether he's a hothead, probably yes. You could say Torben is a little bit of a hothead. He's quick to act. He's quick to make the jump. He does succumb to a bit of corruption from Mother Anastasia when she's able to take control. So sort of seeing that side of that that encounter with the witches when they go up the tower, that was kind of cool to sort of see what's going on in Torben's mind, and she sort of pushes him to sort of express his emotions a little bit more, maybe draw out a little bit of an emotional response, so that in the next part we see him, basically race off to go and get the twins and save the twins, because that's his ticket out of there. Whether he in the present sort of feels responsible for everything that happened there because he acted on instinct and emotion rather than relying on the Force and listening to his masters and stuff like that. Maybe he feels responsible. That's why he put himself in it, took the Barash vow and put himself into that sort of deep trance. I don't know. It didn't really feel like it had that much of a hit for him to go and do that. I feel like there's more to his story there than what we've just seen. I just don't know, because he eventually obviously becomes a Jedi Knight, or he gets referred to as Master Torben. So I'm not sure whether that means I think he becomes a Jedi Knight, not necessarily a Master, because that would mean he'd have to become a Master. You've got to successfully train a Padawan, and there's only sort of 10 years. Well, there's 6 years, and then he was in a trance for 10 years. So there's some more stuff happening there. So whether or not he has a part to play in Osha's eviction from the Jedi Order, I think that could be a big part to play. But yeah, just being a little bit of a hothead, and doesn't really seem cause to concern himself with putting himself in a 10-year trance to let, and then eventually accept the poison to take away any guilt and off himself, basically. It didn't feel like that was sort of strong enough for Torben. Kelnaka, love seeing him wield the lightsaber. That was, he didn't really have a huge part to play. Obviously, in the duel there, we all wanted to see Kelnaka wielding a lightsaber and kicking butt, and he kind of did. He scratched up Torben's face, and it was good. But the witch's power is interesting. Again, like I said, I'm very looking forward to having a rewatch and thinking about this one a little bit more. So my mind has been elsewhere all week. So I haven't really put as much time into this episode as I have previous weeks. But I certainly will. The witch's power, they're able to turn into sort of black mist. That was interesting. I didn't really see that coming. Their ability to possess. Obviously, we saw a bit of that in episode 3, where she takes a hold of Torben, and it only feels like he's out for a second, but he probably feels like he was in that trance for a long few moments. So I found that to be really interesting. And May started to show signs of having that ability to transform, whether Mother Anastasia had that for her, like was able to assist her with that and do that for her, rather than May having that ability. I'm not sure. You can just sort of picture Mother Anastasia, and then Sol, obviously, under direct threat. I thought when Sol ignited his lightsaber, I thought his main aim was to stop Torben from attacking. I thought he was on his like he was ready to go, like he was ready to fight. And I thought initially when Sol took his lightsaber out, I thought, no, he's going to just hold Torben back, he's going to deflect and see what happens here. But obviously Sol felt threatened and instinctively put his lightsaber through the mist, killing the mother, which was pretty brutal. And then Indara, then having to come in and save them from Kelnaka, possessed Kelnaka. I just want an action figure of Kelnaka, having her basically have to come in and through his mind reach out and knock out all the rest of the coven. I assume they didn't just knock them out; that killed them. She had to touch their minds, so she's carrying a fair bit of weight. But yeah, May, you can sort of see where May's impressions as a young 8-year-old girl, these 4 Jedi show up and completely just change her life for the worst. You kind of see why she was ambitious at the start of the season, willing to go and hunt down these 4 Jedi and take them off the map. It was, revenge. She was driven by revenge. She thought her sister had been probably killed or taken. I'm not sure. Then we get to see Sol making that choice with the girls on the bridge. Like, I need to rewatch this episode and compare it with the first one to the different points of view. Because Sol, he's holding back both the sisters, and he eventually makes that decision to let go of one of them. He doesn't seem to have the strength to hold both of them. So he focuses on Osha and lets May fall. And that's a pretty detrimental choice there that Sol made in that moment. Maybe in his heart, I don't think he wanted May to survive, knowing that, she's been, basically adopted into the coven. She's gone through the ritual, the ascension, and potentially comes across as the dark side of the sister. I found the Jedi testing the midichlorian count. That was very interesting. And yeah, there's a lot of talk about the existence of these twins, this Virgence, belittling what Anakin eventually was. Some 80 years later, I suppose, 70 years later. I don't think it does. I think I spoke in length last week about the whole dyad perspective. These 2 girls are they're half and half. They're basically like one person split into 2 bodies, and I think when they eventually get back together, that's when their true power is going to flourish. My good friend Palpatine, how are you, sir? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for coming and hanging out. Yeah, it was a little bit of a low crowd in here tonight, but that's all good. It's all good. It's cool. I'm just here to talk. One more episode next week, which is going to be. I'm looking forward to next week. Sort of expecting this episode. This one was very expected after episode 3. I think the alternate point of view. They sort of said they've taken some influence from the film Rashomon, so that's obviously played out in this point, and that was used to a degree in The Last Jedi as well, with the multiple versions of the flashbacks. So whether this version is accurate or not, I'm not sure. Like, it's more so just a joint perspective, and I think the way some of it was shot, I think there could have been some alternate takes. I find when I look at things like that, when you're seeing things from a different perspective, I always go back to Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, where they do go through the time turner and they go back, and you sort of seeing everything unfold from a different perspective. It's different, completely different set of circumstances, but I like the way that sort of interwove and played out. Whereas this one, it's sort of, we got a little bit of that, like I was saying earlier, from Sol's point of view when he's up in the generator room to when he's in the forest and he's following the girls and he sees it from a different point of view. That was cool. But then they sort of went back and just basically felt like they were replaying some of the shots from episode 3. And it was kind of it felt like they were just rehashing a little bit just to fill in the time. and make sure the story all sort of linked up time wise. So I'm not sure whether that totally worked for me. I'm interested to see if anyone else thinks so. But I enjoyed the episode. I did. It's just, I don't know. I kind of felt maybe by episode 7, if there's a bigger picture to the story, I thought we may have had a little hint. Maybe we have. Maybe it's been there all along. We just haven't picked it out yet. But I've really liked this season so far. Like I said, 1 episode to go. It should be a lot of fun. It should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how this story wraps up. I'm trying to work out, rack my brain right now on my tired Saturday night state as to what we really need to figure out here. There's obviously a lot of closure with the twins. What that means for Sol's relationship with both Osha and May. Being that the last time we saw Sol, he had May locked up or strapped to the bed, and he was ready to tell her everything, about to tell her what happened. And maybe there's some forgiveness from May there. Maybe there's some forgiveness, and with sort of Osha, we saw last week being very, very tempted, and eventually putting on that Cortosis helmet, which, looking back at that, has a lot more ramifications, I think, because Chimera sort of spoke about. I'm going to talk about last week again because that was just so good. So Chimera spoke about the Cortosis helmet being able to block out any penetration with the Force from other Force users being able to read his mind or anything like that. But I wonder whether that acts the same. I mean, outward. If you're in the helmet, you're so trapped in yourself, like you're within your own self. You can dig deeper into yourself when you've got that helmet on. I wonder if that's, something that's going to push Osha deeper into thought of, other pathways of the Force, like the dark side. I wonder if that's kind of something I've thought about over the last couple of weeks since that episode. And yeah, just with the Chimera sort of, he put everything on the table for her. Like it's such a good. I did mention it last week, the sort of the juxtaposition between Chimera and Sol, being that, the Jedi side who should be, high peace, peace, negotiation, talk, very relaxed and settled. It was quite chaotic, whereas the time that Osha had with Chimera on the planet there, that was very. It was very peaceful. It was very, he was offering himself, offering his teachings. He wasn't letting her react. He was letting her react in a way that she would see fit. He was sort of explaining things. It was no lies there. I don't know what it is. Yeah, it was, but it was very put himself out there. Like he tried to appear vulnerable to Osha, so she could feel that comfort with him, I think. And yeah, it was very sort of Rey and Luke on Arc 2, had that sort of vibe. So that was cool. Honestly, the series has been quite underwhelming, honestly. The screenwriting has been a head scratcher. If you pay close attention, a lot of the contradictions on characters' dialogue. I haven't really picked up too much on like dialogue or anything like that. There's a lot of puzzles being put together. Like it is at its heart, it's a mystery. It's a mystery series. It's a mystery thriller sort of thing going on here. We've got to, you got to dig a little bit deeper below the surface. And Star Wars hasn't always done that. It's never been sort of below the surface, convoluted. It's always been, pretty straightforward, black and white. Whereas this is sort of this is sort of blending those two together a little bit. We're seeing a little bit of this gray in between. Not saying there's grey Jedi. No, there's no such thing as grey Jedi. Please don't at me. It's sort of blurring those lines. That you can look at the Jedi in a different light and go, well, they're playing hush hush here a little bit, and you look at Cormier as a dark side, or whether he's Sith or not, we're not sure yet. Yeah, and you kind of see things from his perspective, and you kind of go, you know what, you've accepted your darkness, you've accepted these emotions as human normal emotions, and you act accordingly. It's not necessarily causing him to be evil. Villains never see themselves as evil. But yeah, this one, it has been a little bit, I'll agree with you, it has been a little bit of a head scratch. I don't know if it's the screenwriting necessarily. I think this episode 7, seemed to be, it felt like the most clunkiest, simply because of what I'd said before. We've seen it, a lot of it already. And it was just with some of the shots, it felt like a lot of reuse. And maybe it's just, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to need to rewatch this last episode. I really just sort of soak it in a little bit more. But I'm all for, if this ends up with a slight little tease at the end for the bigger picture, I think I'm going to call it a success. You know, allowed to have these sort of smaller stories. This is, while it's a big story, being a mystery, it's still quite condensed. It's not big scale like the films. The films are dedicated for big galactic conflicts and the big moments of Anakin's life and Luke's life and Rey's life throughout each of the trilogies. Whereas these shows can kind of pick on these little moments. They can kind of tune in on these, little moments in time, which may seem sort of insignificant at the time, but in terms of what's happened in this series, I think it is going to have an impact on the bigger picture at large. I spoke about it last week. I think there's a lot in this that actually ties into the Sith, the rule of two, the dyad experience that Palpatine dealt with in episode 9. And I think we're going to get even more of that with Ahsoka season 2, when we start learning more about the Mortis gods and Baylan Skoll's journey there. I think we're going to find this linking more than just what it appears on the surface. I think, yeah, definitely got to dig a little bit deeper, and there's just some little thematic elements that are just going to link everything together. But again, it's not so just clear cut. It's below the surface stuff. Hey, Michael, how are you, mate? Good to hear from you. Helmet and witches are not the Star Wars horde in my life. I'm good with the witches, man. The Night Sisters have been around for a long time, and even in the Ewok movies, there were witches. It's just other versions of the Force being used. Soul always seems out of breath. Maybe he needs an asthma pump. I think that's just his dialect. I mean, the dude, he's Korean, and he learned English to play this role. So, yeah, maybe his dialect, English dialect, isn't super duper clear. Maybe that's what that is. I don't know. I'm no dialect coach. I'm no multilinguist. I know a bit of English and a bit of gibberish, and that's about it. So maybe that's just the way he speaks when he's speaking English. He may not be sort of clear, and he may not be well versed in English as as himself, the actor. So he's learned these lines. He's learned how to speak a bit of English in order to play this role and speak these lines. So maybe that's just the way he speaks. It's his dialect. I don't know. I mean, he was doing a fair bit of running around, let's be honest. Eddie, what's going on? They lost me with a singer during credits. I'm right there with you, Michael. I did bring this up at the start of the stream. I just, unless it's, I don't know. I feel like even going back to episode 3 with the chants, the power of one, the power of two, the power of many, that sort of chant. I don't know if that was in a chant had sort of come across in, a more an alien language. We get Greedo talking Huttese, we get Jabba the Hutt talking Huttese, we get aliens. I would like to hear that in, the Dathomirian witches, they do chants and it's not in English. I think had their chants been like an ancient witch language or something, I think that would have come across a lot better. Because it kind of, it was kind of a little bit strange. It kind of sort of pulled out a little bit, and then having the song in the credits of this episode. Like I said, I haven't listened to it. It started playing. I heard it while we were listening to it at work. I didn't listen to the words. It just a Star Wars show doesn't need a pop song in the credits. It just, I don't know. As soon as those credits roll and a pop song starts, it's weird. It just pulls you out, especially when you've got a composer like Michael Abels, who is, one thing about the show, the music has been unreal. Michael Abels killed it with the music. There's some incredible moments. When you got someone that talent, you use that, especially when you want to play the credits and get some emotion, get some thought-provoking stuff. And I'm not sure that the quote-unquote pop song, I don't know whether to class it as a pop song or what, or R&B or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm a metalhead, so I don't know. You think there'll be a season 2? I don't know. It's a good question. I feel maybe there's a continuation of the story in another way, in another way. I don't know. I'm not sure. It feels, I don't know, it's going to need to leave something pretty damn open, whereas I feel like they're sort of putting a lot of closure on, going back and filling out these 4 characters, the 4 main Jedi's motivations. I feel like they're sort of trying to put some full stops, whether they add up or not. Like I was saying before, I don't know that Torben's was sort of strong enough. His action in this episode was strong enough for him to take the Barash vow and go into a 10-year trance and basically, take the poison at the end, like willingly take the poison and end his own life. Maybe that's me. Maybe I'm not looking into that enough. We're not going to know till the season ends. There hasn't really been a straight path through it. If it wraps up, I don't think they need to. Maybe they won't need to do a second season of the Acolyte. I think I'd like to see more stories in this time era. I'd even like to see them go back a little bit further. And if we're going to start talking about, the Sith, starting to encumber on the Republic and the Senate and the Jedi Order and stuff, without actually revealing themselves, but having that the sort of background manipulations like we saw with Palpatine doing the whole time, basically through his political career as senator, chancellor, just working little things. He's just doing little things like stuffing with the banks. And up till now, we haven't seen Plagueis or Tenebris. I think that's what we all want, really, isn't it? I'm gonna be wrong. I know Tenebris as a character isn't technically canon. Plagueis is, obviously. He's been mentioned. His backstory, the novel, obviously, is no longer canonical. I mean, it is in my heart until they do otherwise, because that's an incredible story. Plagueis, Tenebris, Venomous, all those awesome characters, and I think there's enough love for that story, that James Luceno's story, Darth Plagueis, the novel from, what was that, 2010? I think there's enough fan love for that story that they wouldn't stray from it too much. It's a matter of how much they're going to show it is the real question. Because this island planet that we were in episode 6, it says come up as unknown planet, but then we get the cave and we get a shot of the cortosis ore running through the planet, running through the Rockies, like through the rocks of the cave. and that speaks, of Baldemnik, the planet that they're sort of dealing with in the Dark Plagueis novel. So I think that's a little nod to the bigger picture here. Whether we see them or not. Let's see what Michael's saying here. These next comments. I think Sol will die saving Bad Twin to redeem him not saving her originally. Interesting. He might. He's amended his comment down below. He might take out the Sith guy just beforehand. Possibly. I don't know. I feel like if there is bigger picture at play here, if there is, if there is a Plagueis, if there is a Tenebrous, there is something else going on that's higher. I've seen Chimera as he is currently the apprentice. He is searching the Acolyte. He's the equivalent of Count Dooku taking on a Ventress. Whether the intention there is to then topple the master, it's the Sith mantra of one to hold the power and one to crave it. So I don't know. I feel like what Chimera has done, he's taken enormous risk by coming out, not being able to keep not being able to wipe his tracks off. Like he's killed 7 out of the 8 Jedi on that planet. Sol got away. He hasn't been able to convert May successfully. He hasn't, he's taken Osha. Now he's trying with this one. So the idea that the Sith could accidentally reveal themselves through Chimera could be enough for them to say, "No, we're taking you off the board." Whether it's Plagueis or Tenebrous, coming in and going, "Sorry, you screwed up. You've put everything at risk for the Sith to remain hidden. We need to be careful. We can't have you risking this again and taking him out, taking him off the board." Or I don't know. There's still those thoughts of Chimera becoming Ren. So whether there's something else that happens there, we're in for. I hope. I don't think we're going to get all this in one episode. Long term, I'd like to see something like that play out. I think it would be cool. I think Manny Jacinto that plays Chimera fantastic. I'd love to see more of him. The amount of work and stuff he put into that character is absolutely unreal. But yeah, it'd be cool to see. I don't know. I think that's I think we're all just dying to see that little hint, aren't we? Just that little bit. But honestly, if we're going to touch on things like Darth Plagueis and Tenebrous, like just adapt that book, just adapt the damn book, and put that on screen. Do it over a couple of seasons. Start off with Tenebrous and Plagueis, and then skip forward to Plagueis and taking on Palpatine, and then Palpatine getting I don't know, just do that over a couple of seasons. I don't think you'll have anyone upset about that. I don't think there's more than what we have seen. I wish, like you guys, it was more, but nothing in this series to show anymore. We'll see next week, Michael. I think we'll, like I said, one episode to go. We could, it depends. They can. I agree the sentiment that the some of the episodes are too short. I'd like to see it sort of. I'd like to see Star Wars go, just sort of go a little bit longer and just sort of play it out just a little bit more. Hey, G-Force, what's going on, my man? Hope you're doing well. Great to hear from you. Yeah, I don't know. I'd kind of like to see Star Wars just slow it down a little bit. It doesn't always have to be faster, more intense. I think Andor, as an episodic series, was able to just sort of take its time, show everything, and just build up a little bit more. I wouldn't object to saying that. I know what they're doing with this series, and that is, they've written a story, they've adapted that to a screenplay, they've then filmed that, and they've basically split that into blocks and going, well, we can do this in 35 minutes, we can do this in 4. Yeah. and that's just the way it's happened. It's a little bit different to, I know a lot of people sort of comparing to Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, which are adaptations from a book. So you can get a book and you can split 3 chapters into a season and go, all right, well, here's an hour for this chapter. There's an hour for that chapter, hour for that chapter. We can build this out in blocks of hours and do it that way. Whereas something like this, it's a story that's sort of written and then adapted from, you know what I mean? It's a little bit tricky one. And again, having absolutely no knowledge of how things play out like that behind the scenes. It's just how the logic in my brain sort of functions. A nice cuppa and some Star Wars chat. I appreciate you tuning in, my man. It's good to hear from you. Really good. Yeah, what's everyone else up to on the weekend? I think I've spoken enough about the Acolyte for this week. I'm like I said, a few days late. I have been doing this sort of straight after the episode or on the night of the episode. But yeah, like I said, life has thrown a couple of curveballs. All good. Just dealing with that. I've just been a little bit run down. Work's been nuts. So yeah, I just took it a couple extra days to chill out and do some life stuff. I thought, you know what, Saturday night's a good time to just kick back and chat some Star Wars. I'll hopefully get back after this week's episode. I'd like to get back to doing a little bit more frequent Saturday night streams, which will be fun. Talk about some toys. I've still been getting some figures. I've got some Acolytes on the way. Got some Acolyte figures on the way. Some new TVC on the way, hopefully next week. I can't put these guys down. This one and the Lieutenant, the 2-pack, I got that this week. And yeah, I can't. It just looks so good. It's such a good looking figure. Just makes me want to watch Clone Wars. Yeah, I started watching Ahsoka again during the week. It's such a good show. Looking forward to SDCC. I am. I'm looking forward to, what's going to come out of that. Because that's only a week and a bit away, isn't it now? Not late next week? It must be late next week. End of next week, yeah. Did you back the Moss Eyes account? No, I did. Yeah. I went full deluxe, man. I had to. It's too good. Oh, it was cool. Actually, I was off Tuesday, and I was just sort of kicking back. Sort of it ended around about 12:30, 1 o'clock. I just missed the last bit, but I was watching Victoria's Cantina. She was doing a little bit of a countdown towards the end, and that was cool. It was cool to jump in there and say hi, and yeah, just watch the numbers slowly climb up. I didn't think it would make it. I didn't think we'd get Ali or shoes, but no shoes allowed. You've got to take off your shoes before entering the cantina. Yeah, it was a bit of a bummer that he didn't make it. Yeah, I just thought, yeah, there's your comment. Sad the Wolfman did not make it. Yeah, that I feel like he could be an absolutely ideal character for a 4-pack, like they did with the Barge. That's a 4-pack I still haven't got. Just can't get it anywhere here in Australia. It's been a real bummer. The Velkin Tazeri pack and the new what's his name, Tessek in there. Yeah, it just doesn't exist. I've got to buy it on eBay from the US, and that will end up costing me about $250. And some change probably. So yeah, I've unfortunately missed out on that pack. But yeah, like putting him in a 4-pack of just random Canteen aliens, do it as a fan channel release. I think that would be really cool. It's a nice way they can just tick off some random aliens. Like there's a couple of random space dudes and some weird looking dude that's sitting there on the stool. And I'm going to do a video this week coming about my existing cantina setup, and just sort of run through the aliens and all that. I'm just sort of looking over there because I don't think there's one alien I'm kind of missing. That is the blue snaggletooth from 2003. So that's one I'd like to get a hold of. It's a tricky one to find. So, but at the same time, that was kind of just a nod to the old Sears figure, so I'm not too fussy about that one. But yeah, I'm excited to sort of talk about that a little bit. We got like 13 months. Oh man, I'm sorry you didn't get to back it. I know it's pricey, man. Like it is pricey. Like for us here in Australia, it's $1,000. Which probably at the moment it's probably around the 650, 700 US mark in comparison. So we're definitely paying a little bit more for it, but at the same time, it's classed as an import. um, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's next to the sail barge, which I was very fortunate enough to be able to get those years ago. The cantina is probably if not the biggest dream come true for a Star Wars collector. The barge was amazing, and being able to get Jabba's palace a few months ago, that was incredible too. It just takes those displays, and I love what Hasbro's doing with some of their diorama pieces. It just adds so much more to the displays. And I hope they do more like that, more modular stuff. We're actually working on doing some modular Death Star walls through Kessel Run here, where I work. We've got someone designing some Death Star walls that are all sort of modular. So I'm looking forward to seeing them coming together in the next, hopefully in the next couple of months. Takes a bit of work. In a perfect world, I'd like to spend a weekend going to toy fairs. Oh, dude, absolutely. Absolutely. That would be a fantastic weekend. You just no pressure. You just go, I need that. I'm going to buy it. I want that. I'm going to buy it. I'd love that. I reckon that'd be awesome. The success of Mos Eisley paves the way for other playsets like the Death Star, Ewok Village, etc. Yeah, what could be next? I'd like to see some I'm just looking around. I'm looking around. I'm just saying, what could we do? I think I'm looking up at episode 1. I'm like, how do we get more pod races out there? Is there a pod racer? Like a garage. I don't know. They tend to be they tend to be going for playsets that can withhold a plethora of figures. The Razor Crest, obviously, they put out a plethora of Mandalorian figures that can interact with that thing. Jabba's Palace, lots of interaction. Jabba's Palace, Jabba's Sail Barge, lots of interaction with lots of different characters. Mos Eisley Cantina, lots of different characters. I don't know, Death Star, Stormtroopers, Han, Chewie, a few others. It would be cool. Like, I'd love to see some walls and stuff like that. Like Cloud City place that I'm looking at it now, it's like, yeah, there's it's a smaller release, but it only needs 8, 9, 10 figures to sort of fill out that sort of display. I'd like to see some more Ugnaughts. The Endor bunker, that was cool. Everything's behind me. I'm just sort of looking at. Yeah, they did the Navarro Cantina. Like, that was kind of cool. I don't know. What else vehicle-wise? I don't know. I don't know if I want to see more vehicles. I'd like to see backgrounds and playsets. Maybe some more of Jabba's Palace. Like maybe see a little bit more. I reckon that'd be cool. I'm looking at doing a little bit of an expansion for my 3 3/4 stuff very, very soon. So I'm looking forward to that. I went ham at Joe first and didn't want to raid the bank. That's fair. Ian, how are you, my friend? Hope you're doing well. Appreciate your tuning in. New Kenner style Death Star would be cool. Absolutely. Imperial Shuttle. Yeah. It's been a long time since we've had an Imperial Shuttle. again, I'm sort of thinking like, what, you know what? Maz Kanata's castle. That'd be cool. Get some more aliens filling that in, get some super articulated, awesome aliens out for Maz Kanata's castle. It's the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens next year. I reckon that'd be cool. Like just the bar room. You know, maybe you have a staircase, you have a little secret door in the back. You can go through into the dungeon. You could have the little briefcase where Ray finds the lightsaber. Show a little bit of love back to the sequels. Would not complain. That'd be cool. Yeah, maybe some more Ahsoka stuff. I don't know. Endless possibilities. There's so much. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap up now, folks. I appreciate you coming and hanging out. We'll get back to some good toy centric discussions and live streams very, very soon. Tragically, they would. And unfortunately, they would. I'm happy to see 3.75-inch HasLabs. However, I'd like to see some 6-inch items. Release some walls, speeder bike, 6-inch series. Yeah. Jedi Starfighter, brand new Anakin. Just do it. All right, folks. No, I appreciate you all coming and hanging out. It was a bit of a slow start. But yeah, it's a little bit of a different time for me to come live at on a Saturday night again. It's been good though. I'll definitely be back soon. And yeah, if you want to tune in Wednesday coming up, I'll put out the details for the finale. We'll have another Acolyte discussion after that. So hope you all have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you very soon. May the Force be with you, everyone.